IGDA's 2021 Annual General Meeting. My name is Renee Gittens, and I am the Executive Director of the IGDA. First and foremost, thank you so much for joining us here today. These are very important conversations, and I'm super glad that you can join us to see what the IGDA has been up to and what we're hoping to do next. So, we'll have our annual general meeting presentation, and then we can open up for questions at the end. But let's get started. So, as I noted, this is the International Game Developers Association's 2021 Annual General Meeting. In this meeting, we will overview the efforts that the IGDA has made over the last year, as well as where we hope to take the organization for next year. So, first of all, the IGDA is the largest nonprofit membership organization in the world that represents individual game developers. We're actually a 501c6 nonprofit professional association, and we support everyone within the game industry, whether you are QA, localization, game design, programming, art, all of the above. We want to make sure we're supporting everyone who participates in any way in the game development process, and that includes marketers, lawyers, esports, everything that supports the game industry. And it is our mission to support and empower game developers around the world in achieving fulfilling and sustainable careers. So all the efforts that we'll be talking about today are efforts that help us towards this goal. I do like to break down this mission into additional goals. These are sort of our main efforts that we've been undertaking in order to support that goal. The way that I like to describe it is through community. So our chapters, special interest groups, and just our global community of game developers support the mission of empowering game developers. We also have our knowledge and resources, such as white papers, industry standards, best practices, and other career, self-growth, and industry resources. And we also advocate for developers. That includes diversity and inclusion, that includes better workplace practices, and we also help developers put the right foot forward in the public eye and help governments, other entities understand game development from a developer's perspective. So overviewing what we've been up to lately, I first really want to start with our community and thank every single level of the community that helps support this organization and each other. And the first level of that would be our board of directors. These are our current board members, and they are all veterans of the game industry who have dozens and dozens of years in between them and do everything they can to support game development communities. They almost all have backgrounds in some sort of role supporting game developers, whether that is through education, through IGDA chapters and special interest groups, or other community and advocacy efforts. We also have the IGDA staff, myself included. Victoria and Jakin are our newest staff members, and Jakin just joined the IGA team this last month as our manager of global development. So his efforts will be to assist in the growth of the IGDA's support of game developers around the world. And around the world includes our over 100 local chapters from everywhere from Japan to Pakistan to all across the United States. In addition to our local chapters supporting game development communities in their areas, we also have 36 special interest groups, which include advocacy groups such as mental health, climate, LGBTQ+, and discipline groups, affinity for game design, game education, writing, all sorts of disciplines that game developers can fall under. And then finally, our affinity groups, such as our Black in Games group, our new Chinese in Games group, and our new 50+ SIG for developers who are 50 years old and older. These chapters and special interest groups are additionally supported by our new coordinators program. These are our current regional coordinators, and their efforts bring together all of the chapters within their region to provide them with additional support as well as additional way to connect with others. They work very hard to support these communities, and if you're from one of these regions and need any assistance, by all means, feel free to reach out to them in addition to IGDA headquarters. We also have our special interest groups coordinators that similarly support various special interest groups to ensure that they are receiving all of the support, information, resources they need to be successful. Throughout the pandemic, not all chapters and special interest groups have been able to run the same events that they usually do, but throughout the years, we usually see them run many really wonderful types of events, as well as create white papers and other research papers to support their communities and their causes. So if you are looking to engage in the creation of, hosting, or attend any of these types of events or consume any of these types of materials, by all means, look to these chapters and special interest groups as well as the headquarters to connect with them. In addition to our chapter and special interest group and coordinator leaders who are extremely valuable to the organization and to supporting game developers everywhere, we also have our additional volunteers. These include mentors, such as for our global mentorship program and the IGDA mentor cafes. Usually it's for our GDC volunteers as well. Unfortunately, we didn't have a booth or go to a physical GDC this year, but perhaps next year. Everyone who contributes to our resource library, of course, our chapter and SIG leaders, and then all of the other advocates and speakers who come together to help support the IGDA, the developers within the IGDA, and all of the wonderful events and missions that we pursue. And then, of course, I have to mention our main community members, the IGDA members themselves. We are so thankful for your support, and it is your belief in bettering the games industry that allows us to put together these wonderful resources and other types of support for both yourselves and other game developers. We appreciate everything that you do and that you are game developers and creators. I mean, the reason that we are involved with the IGDA, the reason the IGDA exists is to support people who are involved with game development. And each and every one of you make up this wonderful industry that we're trying to uplift. Now, breaking this down onto the number side of things, IGA membership numbers are still down slightly due to the pandemic. We saw that many of the members who declined to renew have cited financial uncertainty as a reason for not renewing. Similarly, we usually see a boost in membership, particularly around GDC and local chapter events. With the COVID-19 pandemic, these aren't happening. But the breakdown of members in terms of percentages is approximately the same as last year, with slightly more individual members, slightly less affiliate members, and slightly less student members, though we think that that number is going to go up now as the school year has started in most regions. Our studio affiliate membership has stayed approximately the same, though definitely grown slightly. We've actually seen an increase in the number of mid-sized studio affiliates within the IGDA. We define this as between 16 to 100 employees. So that's in the not small indie, but not hitting that really AAA size studio. And it is important to note that while we have a far larger number of the below 16 employee studios, that mid-sized and larger studio members contribute more studio or individual member numbers because they are larger. So the majority of our studios are indie studios that have 15 or below employees, but the overall contribution of individual studio affiliate members is from the larger studios. Throughout this last year, we've really focused on improving some of these member benefits. The game showcase was rolled out, and we've seen it to be quite popular, especially during the pandemic, where normal conferences where developers can show off their products to both each other, publishers, and the public are not being held. The Global Mentorship Program has also been continuing, though we'll talk about that in a little bit of the ways that we hope to improve it. And then we've also been creating more game industry white papers to tackle issues within our industry and to provide guidance for how to best overcome them. Now, the final part of the IGDA community that we wanted to recognize are our affiliates and our partners. We are thankful to have many returning affiliates this year, so much that I actually divided them into 2 pages, so you'll have to bear with me for a second. This includes wonderful studios like Epic, Valve, Shell Games, and Play Everywhere, but as you can see, there are many more. And here are even more returning affiliates. So as I said, a number of these are indie studios, but of course we have larger studios as well, like Wizards of the Coast, joining our ranks and continuing to be within our ranks. We also have a number of new affiliates that we'd like to celebrate. All of these are affiliates who have joined since our last annual general meeting approximately a year ago, and we greatly appreciate their support and welcome them to the IGDA. It's wonderful to see such a variety of studios joining the IGDA. Now, we also have partners who've come back. There's partners such as Odin Law and Media and Stride PR who have supported the IGDA for years, but there's also a number of kind of newer partners that continue to be with us, such as Dell Technologies and AWS Game Tech. Here are more of our returning partners. As you can see, we're working with quite a large variety, from Finnegan Law all the way through Google and Samsung. And then we have a number of new partners to celebrate who have recently joined the IGDA to help support game developers and connect them with the services that they're offering. So if you're interested in connecting with any of these partners, please let us know, and we'll be sure to put you in touch if you have any business questions at all. So we've talked about community, but next I'd like to talk about the knowledge and resources, the ways that we have been trying to promote these values and these resources themselves within the IGDA. First, I think it's important for us to note a little bit about how COVID has affected the industry that we're in itself. While in 2020 we saw huge growth of the game industry with over $87 billion in sales, we also saw a lot of negative effects. Of course, there's the hardware production issues, which is affecting the rollout of consoles and GPUs. There was a cancellation of many of our favorite game industry events. And of course, challenges with remote work and balancing home obligations, particularly without the same types of childcare support and other services during the pandemic. Based on this, we identified that there are ways that the game developers could be better supported through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we worked to present this to numerous entities that are looking at their own policies, both government and otherwise, to improve their support of their local industries from a game development perspective. We recommended and are working with partners to try to create better support in making connections and networking. we've been working to encourage more opportunities for financial backing of projects. If you are based within the United States, one of the partners that we've been working with recently is the Federal Games Guild, and they have a wonderful set of resources for types of grants that you can apply to. We've requested better tracking of manufacturing and import troubles. Not only would this be beneficial to the games industry, so we can better understand potential delays of console rollouts and other technology, but clearly it would be applicable for the wider technology industry as well. And then with some of the issues that we've seen around the world, we know that investment in infrastructure to improve the stability of electricity, internet access, and access to technologies and their support is going to do wonderful things to uplift game developers and support their healthy work everywhere. We also have been supporting our own COVID-19 resources for developers. This includes safety information from different government organizations and links to where you can find them, financial support resources broken down by areas of the world that they apply to, additional articles on professional advice, and then, of course, we've tried to foster locations online for our communities to provide support to each other, such as the IGDA Discord. We hosted in April of last year the Game Development Crisis Conference, and out of that conference came 15 talks, which are now also hosted on YouTube, that focus on supporting developers and providing them tools to successfully continue through this crisis or any type of crisis. That includes information about how to manage remote teams, how to switch your hardware to support remote development, how to support your game communities through crisis, and of course, how to support your own mental health. I highly recommend checking out these talks if you haven't. There are a lot of really wonderful resources there. You will also find on the IGDA YouTube channel over 100 different panels and talks through various content that we have worked to create, both through our Twitch webinars as well as additional content. If you would like to give a talk for the IGDA, by all means contact us. And if you are a member of a chapter or special interest group that has recorded a talk or would like to record a talk, please talk to us, because we'd be happy to host that on our channel and to promote it as well. Then one of the other resources that we brought up as brand new this year was we hosted for the very first time a game design challenge that was targeted at students who are 18 and below. This game design challenge was focused on teaching students about game development for the first time and the processes of game development, from their initial concept and planning of the game and all of its deliverables, through prototyping, iteration, play testing, and final polish of the title. It was created in a 4-week format that could be easily integrated into classrooms. And we saw a huge response from this, with over 1,000 teachers and 7,000 students signing up and over 300 games submitted. We think that this was an extremely successful event and have gotten really wonderful feedback, though the focus of the event itself was to initially teach students about game development and the different elements that go into developing games. It also had a strong element of project management and really taught students important project management skills. We have lots of really good feel-good quotes from this as well, especially from teachers giving feedback, but I'll just read out this one to you. We cannot thank you enough for this amazing opportunity. It was such an excellent experience for me as a teacher and all of the students. We are so grateful. That really just warms my heart to hear. And speaking of heartwarming, the final subject that I wanted to talk about in terms of the efforts that we've done recently is our advocacy efforts. As always, the IGDA takes strong stances against crunch, harassment, and for the better ethics of the game industry. We have worked to make sure that developers' voices are being heard in all discussions that affect game development, from child online safety to loot boxes to other industry events and turmoil. And while working on these advocacy efforts, we have focused this year to launch white papers and studies specifically targeted at the problems within our industry and how to improve our industry. Before we get too much into what IGDA headquarters has been creating, I actually wanted to call out the Developer Credit Special Interest Group. They, of course, have created a reference guide for how to properly credit within video games that has been widely shared and is quite popular, but is rather a hefty document because it goes into such explicit details for all of the potential issues and recommendations. So they have recently published a video game credits inclusion quick guide that is really, really easy to reference and to use to inform how you're crediting developers within your game to ensure that they are credited properly. I actually just pulled some notes from this here, reduced it a little to fit on the page. But as you can see, these are all steps that we can easily take as game developers, and to ensure that developers properly receive note for their efforts so that they can put games titles on their resumes and have that confirmed by employers. We as an industry really need to come together to ensure that developers are properly credited for the efforts that they do, because our industry is so based on having that portfolio of work and experience. Not only is it the ethical thing to do, but it is something that is necessary to ensure that all of our developers are supported, whether they work the first 4 years on a project and then leave the year before ship, or if they're on the year right before the project gets out the door. All of their efforts are worthy of being noted. You can find this wonderful one-pager and more detailed resources as well on the Developer Credit Special Interest Group page. One of our other advocacy guides that has come out is our guide for game companies, how to create and sustain a positive work culture. This was published in partnership with Facebook Gaming and released in May. And this is a wonderful guide that is focused on how to build an inclusive, diverse team with a positive culture, and how to set up the structures to ensure that your team and your company grows and develops properly. Not only does this cause you to have a positive culture, but it allows the developers within your studio to grow and expand their talents and to feel satisfied with not only the efforts they are doing, but with how they are improving their own skills. We created this paper not only with our own insights, but with research and input from special interest group leaders, experts, and other partners. Similar to this white paper, we have one that is currently finalizing in terms of the first draft, and that's an inclusive game design and development white paper. We're looking about how to inform developers to create an inclusive game design process from the initial building of your team all the way through the marketing and community management of your games. If this would be a paper that you would be interested in contributing to or providing your feedback on, please reach out to me at renee@igda.org. the more eyes that we have on this, the more different types of experts that we have on this, the better quality this white paper will be, and the more that we can ensure that our industry moves forward to not only be inclusive in who we hire, but to also be inclusive in who we inspire with what we are creating. In terms of research, we ran our developer satisfaction survey for 2021, and we released the COVID-19 results from that survey. The full results are going to be available in the next few weeks, probably in just over 2 weeks, so please stay tuned for that. As always, this survey is extremely important to inform the IGDA and our industry as a whole in terms of what efforts need to be done, where we are lacking, how we can improve our support of developers. It reveals issues around our demographics and diversity. It shows our current state of crunch, the pay rates of developers, and importantly, how big issues and troubles like COVID-19 impacts not only individual developers, but the overall industry and approach. We also are partnering with York University for even more in-depth study of COVID-19 and its effects within the game industry. York University surveyed 250 almost participants across a wide range of roles and backgrounds. And their preliminary findings found that most respondents didn't seem to think that they were less productive, but those who had caregiving or other at-home responsibilities did find their time significantly affected. However, because of this, many of the developers who responded actually wanted to have a hybrid return to the office or even stay fully remote. And as we've seen within the industry and the hiring process, many studios who are requiring on-site developers are having trouble with those hirings because of this new push towards either fully remote or hybrid work. It seemed like, based on this study, the best way that the IGDA can support developers is by helping supplement social environments, such as using our special interest groups and our Discord and other online communities, and to create resources on tools to increase productivity, particularly of remote teams. As we all know, leadership, art, complex engineering programs and tasks and architectures, and game design can be very difficult to communicate in a way that is as productive when it is fully remote. Great. So another one of our big efforts is our Global Industry Game Awards. We celebrated our very first Global Industry Game Awards, or GIGAs, on August 27th. It's September 27th today. And we hosted this in partnership with DevCom as sort of the final ceremony of DevCom itself. DevCom assisted us in hosting a really, really wonderful awards ceremony, and I highly recommend you watch it on their YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, it was really beautiful. And we celebrated a record 39 awards across many, many different categories of game development. Our goal with the Gigas was to have them be peer-determined awards that celebrated both individuals and discipline-based teams for their specific contributions to popular games that were released in 2020. And I think that the awards themselves did a really wonderful job of not only recognizing titles that were outstanding overall, but ones that had very interesting implementations of graphics and other types of art and technology. We do hope to host this next year, so if you have any thoughts in terms of categories we missed, or you are going to be making nominations, please look out in January where we will be opening that up. And of course, we hope that you vote next year on the finalists so we can ensure that the games industry's opinions are fully represented in the awards that we provide. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Chris shortly for the IGDA financial report.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the IGDA 2020 financial report. Here's an executive summary with some high-level numbers. As an organization, including chapters and SIGs, we made approximately $47,000 in profit. Factoring the chapters and SIGs out, HQ operated at a loss of approximately $11,500, and I'll point out that we have cash reserves from previous years, so I want to be very clear that all the revenue brought in by chapters and SIGs has been allocated as such. It's also important to note that there was an accounting error that took place in 2019, where $35,000 of sponsorship money for GDC 2020 was booked in our accounting in 2019. So when we had to return that in 2020, it was deducted from our 2020 books. Were it not for this error, HQ would have operated at approximately a $25,000 profit. I will also note that a number of studios and partners that deferred membership and sponsorship last year recently renewed in the first half of this year, which has us looking optimistic for a good rebound in 2021. I'll start with this chart of income versus expenses for the last 4 years, and all of these include chapters and SIGs, their revenues and costs. 2020 was our worst year in terms of income, but with everything being virtual, we were also able to minimize our expenses. But this looks really better than it is because $73,000 of the revenue from chapters and SIGs helped us as an organization close the gap. This shows a breakdown of where this year's income came from, and again, I've included chapters and SIGs just to show their impact on our overall budget. And this is what it looks like when we take them out. In terms of percentages here, 2020 is very similar to 2019. Membership is the lifeblood of the organization and made up more than 60% of HQ's revenue. Operating income includes things like advertising revenue, career center, and visa support letters, all of which were down in 2020. Renee worked really hard to make up 18% of the budget with virtual events, and again, this would have been higher if we didn't have to return the $35,000 that was booked as income in 2019. Here's a stacked comparison of 2019 and 2020. And then here's a side-by-side category comparison, which I believe is easiest for everyone to digest. Individual membership down by 34%, corporate membership down by 20%, operating income fell, visas were down by 10,000, advertising by 6,000, and miscellaneous by 3,000. And while that's not much, it does add up. Events for 2020 are actually better than they look here because you have to sort of imagine 35,000 jumping from 2019 to 2020. But I'll touch on that a bit later when I do a deeper dive into memberships, operating income, and events. So memberships, focusing just on membership is a breakdown of a monthly membership income over the last 4 years. We don't see that usual spike that we've seen in the past in September, October. And that's because a number of partners decided to defer their memberships due to the uncertainties of COVID. So we're down slightly more than 30% or $95,000 from $306,000 down to $221,000. Since the annual meeting is happening so late this year, I decided to show how things are looking at the midpoint of 2021. Membership income for June 2021 was just over $80,000, and it was our best month since 2019. And this was anchored by a number of renewals and partnership deals. 2020 is represented by the yellow line, and we really lacked individual membership renewals in February and March. These months are mostly driven by individuals signing up before GDC because an IGDA membership gets a discount that is $60 larger than the cost of the membership. So essentially people save $60 at GDC and get a free IGDA membership when they sign up or renew in February and March. So simply put, 2020 was a rough year for indies and a lot of people, and there was a lot of uncertainty in the air. So this year, individual memberships brought in $93,500, down $47,000 from last year, or down 34%. Looking at the green line here, we see the first half of 2021, and we can still see that lack of GDC continues to be a lost opportunity for us. Again, 2020 in yellow, corporate memberships dropped 20%, from 147,000 down to 118,000. Still, this ended up being our second best year since 2017. Despite a number of membership deferrals, we closed part of that gap with new partners and new corporate memberships. And that just means that the corporate membership and sponsorship income is more diverse than it has been in past years. Again, 2021 in green, and that's quite a green hockey stick. Again, we're looking optimistically at doing better than the gray line of 2019. However, most of the big studio renewals are actually behind us. So it's going to take a lot of effort to close the gap in the second half of the year. Of course, overall membership numbers are still below past years, but still quite respectable considering the challenges faced in 2020. And again, looking at the 2021 midpoint, overall still trending very well, but as I said, the big guns have been fired, and there's still a lot of work to do to close out the year. Shifting gears to operating income, this is a side-by-side comparison of 2019 versus 2020 income, and you can see that we're just down across the board. So events, here I just wanted to take a closer look at GDC and that accounting error that we made. That should have been deferred income to March of 2020. And because we didn't do that, and we actually booked that as income in 2019, we had to show it as negative income in our 2020 financial report when we returned it. In 2020, actually, we only took a small loss at GDC for about $1,000 in non-refundable plane tickets. If we completely remove that $35,000 sponsorship that we had to return, making it look like it never happened, we get a more accurate picture of what GDC looked like both in 2019 and 2020. And basically, we lost a small amount of money in both years. So this graph looks at all of the events in 2019 and 2020. Again, in addition to GDC, there were some mentor cafes. And again, you have the $35,000 that was booked in 2019 that we refunded back to the sponsor in 2020. And factoring it out so that it doesn't exist, here we get a more accurate picture of how events performed in 2020. Costs are low, thus they are more profitable. And Renee did an excellent job both in running online events and finding sponsors. Looking at 2021, there has been a lot of fatigue from online events, and this year has been a little more challenging. And looking at just the HQ only expenses, this one does look a little weird, but I feel it's very much in line with 2020 with very minimal travel costs or event costs. So more than 85% of the expenses went to operating and management costs. These are costs associated with keeping things running like salaries, IT and communication costs, legal documentation, storage and management costs, accounting, insurance, bank costs, postage, and the like. Closing things out, this is what our cash balance has looked like over the past few years on December 31st. This amount can actually fluctuate a decent amount from month to month, depending on what still needs to be collected or paid. And again, that $35,000 sort of buffers the 2019 report or balance here. Overall, as a board, it is our fiduciary responsibility to have enough cash on hand to cover at least 3 to 4 months of operating expenses, which we have. And with that, I'll close. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. So next, and finally, I want to talk about our plans for 2021. We really want to continue to improve our support and empowerment of game developers. We've seen that our Discord community has been widely used, But we feel like we can provide more support for chapter and SIG events, particularly online events, while many locations can still not safely host in-person events. We have also been really ramping up our ability and efforts to make tailored introductions and connections so that when a partner or someone else reaches out to the IGDA looking for a particular type of developer or someone to hire, that we can put them in touch with interested parties in addition to broadcasting that to our wider audience. We are also looking at ways to really better support our members, volunteers, and our leaders. We want to make sure that we are a true community and that we're supporting everyone within that community. We've been looking at leadership training resources and developing resources to better help our leaders within our communities. Of course, we have the new white papers that I previously discussed, and we've noted that we can improve our support for emerging markets, and we're working on seeing how we can best improve the ways that we work with emerging markets to provide them with the information and support that they need to start their game industry careers and to grow the game industry within their communities. If you have any other thoughts about how we can help you, please let us know. We're always looking for more input, and we would love your insight. I also wanted to talk about specific resources that we're looking to create. We would love to launch new special interest groups. We've noted that we really would need esports and engineering focused special interest groups. So if you are passionate about esports professionals, or you are an engineer who really wants to help create a community supporting other engineers with the game industry, whether that's graphics engineering, gameplay, technology, whatever it is, please let us know. As I noted, we're creating a number of new white papers, including an inclusive game design and development white paper. We'll be coming out with the developers satisfaction survey in a few weeks. And we're also currently creating career starter kits. Some of our emerging market members noted that career starter kits would be a great resource for them. And so we've invested into creating these. These are kits that contain information about a discipline, such as engineering, and talk about how to get started in that discipline, the different types of careers that discipline can lead to, what you need in terms of your resume, portfolio, and cover letter, and a number of free resources that you can use to study up on those disciplines and start your career from scratch. And then finally, we're working to improve the Global Mentorship Program. We think that this is a truly wonderful program that can support many developers in their careers, but that there are ways to improve it by providing guidelines for how long each mentorship pairing lasts, for improving communication between mentors and mentees. So if you are part of the Global Mentorship Program or interested in joining it, expect a rollout in the next few months for improvements there so we can better support developers through this mentorship. Finally, over the next year, I didn't expect that to animate, sorry. Over the next year, we have a number of events that I wanted to put on your calendar. Our first event that is upcoming is Pathfinding's Global South. This is a wonderful event that Gwen Foster created in support of game developers from the Global South. So this is a celebration of game developers from the Global South and works to connect those developers with publishers, recruiters, and other opportunities, while also giving them a platform to speak, share their thoughts, and practice their public speaking skills. So this was an extremely wonderful conference last year, and I have high hopes for it this year as well. If you are interested, we just opened up tickets this last week. It is 100% free if you're a developer to join. We only charge for publishers and recruiters to attend. And we've also just opened up speaker applications. So if you're from the Global South and you would like to share your thoughts on pretty much any aspect of game development, please reach out to us and we will work to get you a slot. We are currently planning for GDC to occur in person in March. We're looking at what that means, how safe that will be, and how we can support that. But if it goes through as normal and it is safe, we will be planning to host our normal GDC SIG roundtables. We'll be hosting an annual general meeting at that time to get us back on a regular annual general meeting schedule and to allow you to connect with us in person if you're able to attend. We will be then planning to host a mentor cafe as well. And we'll be looking at various leadership and networking events as we usually host, but based on the safety and availability to host those events. In April, we'll then be bringing back the Game Design Challenge that I spoke about earlier. If you'd be interested in assisting with the improvement or expansion of those resources for these students, please let me know. We always appreciate your input. We then plan to host the Global Industry Game Awards again in August with partnership with DevCom. And then coming back to next November, we will be hosting Pathfindings again as we plan for it to be a yearly event. So first of all, thank you so much for your support. I know there's a lot of numbers in that and there's a lot of information, but I hope that you are as proud of the accomplishments of our wonderful members and community leaders as I am. Thank you so much, and I'll be turning it over now to questions. Sorry, I accidentally muted there. Hello, sorry. So this is our board of directors, as well as our staff members, and of course myself. If you have any questions about the IGDA, any of our chapters or SIGs, any of the efforts that we're doing, by all means, please feel free to ask them. We're keeping an eye on the chat. And yeah, we're open for questions now and any other discussion that you'd like. First of all, of course, thank you so much for joining us. And a huge thanks to the IGDA board and staff for all you do to support the IGDA. Yay! Quiet claps. I know that this has been quite the strange year, especially considering that we've been in a pandemic for now over a year. So certainly the day-to-day activities of the IGDA are a little different of normal since we're not having in-person events and less of our chapters are having in-person events as well. It is our hope that that changes this next year, but we will do our best to support everyone in this more digital world in the meantime. And Chris, thank you so much for your presentation. It was great to see you go over the finances in detail. It's
Always happy to help, Renee. Always happy to help.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay. Here we have a question from the Pixie Parker. What new projects is the board most excited for this next year? Board members, is there anything that you're particularly excited for that's coming up? Oh, go ahead.
I guess I can go. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of things that we are cooking up and preparing for our community across the globe. One of the things that I would highlight is the Global Mentor Program that we are building, completely new things there. And it's going to be awesome. So I'm really looking forward to share more information on the mentorship side and also on the academic affiliates programs that we are preparing, more content for our partners. And so, yeah, at least these two are something that are, major stuff coming up. So
Absolutely. Both Natasha and Jakin have been working on different ways to better support the Global Mentorship Program, including mentor training materials, just improvements to the program itself. I think that's going to be really, really wonderful there. And then, of course, both Natasha and Jakin and a few of our other board members have academic backgrounds in teaching game development students. So I'm sure that that will assist in our connections with academic affiliates and our support for other academic activities. Wonderful. Does anyone else have anything that they're excited for that's coming up? I'm particularly excited for Pathfindings. I think Pathfindings Global South is going to be a really wonderful conference, and I love seeing the support for particularly emerging markets. I know not all of Global South is an emerging market, but there are certainly a lot of emerging markets within the Global South. So we've been talking to a lot of interested parties and groups who will be assisting with that. Nanimo said, I believe you mentioned future white paper / effort on esports. Can you tell us a bit more about what you want to capture and where you're doing so far, and other topics you'd like to see a white paper being developed by the IGDA? I'm actually going to pull up my notes on that right here. So we're actually looking to see if we can launch an esports special interest group. This doesn't necessarily have to be white paper focused. It can just be community focused. I had talked with a number of esports professionals, Fatality, State of the League, Travis, QXC, Cheese, and asked them the struggles that they see within the esports community, what new and established members of esports professionals in all regards could use for help. And we decided, after talking with them, I wrote down a basic list of things. For resources, there seemed to be a lot of desire for basic business information, just standards of how things are run, as well as salary and pay context, so what the rate should be if you're providing video editing or graphics help, or if you're casting a tournament, things like that, or competing within a team. They were also looking for recommendations on contracts. Of course, providing legal advice is not something that we can specifically do, but we can provide sources from lawyers and other entities that allow you to better evaluate your contracts. For additional resources, they were looking for assistance with network and collaboration, ways to find people to work with, both peers, videographers, etc., and meetups that weren't just crazy parties. Unfortunately, in the esports and streaming realm, a lot of the networking events tend to be less business networking focused and more celebratory. And a place that they could connect game developers with influencers and vice versa. So if a studio is coming out with a new project, they can reach out to influencers. And similarly, if an influencer wants to get special access to content, that they can reach the game developers. And then finally, as the IGDA and most of its special interest groups provide, a place to formulate and provide community responses. So being able to speak across games and teams about important subjects that come up in the esports realm, whether that's on, tournament behavior, community management, current news, anything like that. So that was our hope for the esports professional special interest group. So if that kind of stuff excites you, or if you're interested in helping develop it, please let us know. Tom Busk, I have a feeling I know that full name, is asking what is the Global South. I'm gonna totally mess this up if I don't look it up particularly. But the Global South are regions which include Latin America, most of Asia, all of Africa, and Oceania. Usually Australia is not included, but we're not being exclusive of Australia there. But it's, all of South America, all of Central America, all of Africa, and then the Middle East, Southeast Europe, and pretty much all of Asia, depending on if you define Russia as Asia or not. We would not include Russia in the Global South. A lot of that region, of course, like Africa, for example, has a lot of up-and-coming game developers who are looking to establish an industry but have yet to find the support yet for that. And so the Global South is the region that we've determined that we're supporting with Pathfindings. The first event was run last year. It had about 580 attendees, and we're expecting a larger turnout this year. Awesome. So the kid 94 asked, what are your hopes for the future of GIGA? So GIGA are the Global Industry Game Awards. We did run the first one this last month. And I hope that in the future that we can really elevate the awards, have them be in person at DevCom, of course, pandemics providing safety. And really, we hope that the Global Industry Game Awards are able to recognize and uplift individual contributors at every level in terms of the disciplines that they participate within. So, it's very common in the game industry to award an entire studio for success, or to award a particular director, or maybe like a really prolific artist or something. But we understand that it's a much wider group of people that contribute. And so the Global Industry Game Awards, the GIGAs, are intended to, yes, recognize discipline-based teams, but to also call out all the individuals on that team, and to make sure that they are getting recognition for their contributions. As we've seen from the game credits SIG, that developers aren't often or not always recognized for their contributions. And so part of the GIGAs is to recognize those individual developers and to truly celebrate them. So in the future, we really hope that we are getting full participation from the game industry in helping to select these groups and individuals to celebrate, and that we have full coverage of pretty much everyone in every discipline who participates within our industry, which is why we have 39 awards right now. It's quite a large number, much more, I think, than pretty much any other game industry awards. But that's because we want to recognize all those individuals, including, quality assurance and, customer support and things like that as well. Nanimo, I don't know how to say that, says, what's the best way to reach out if we want to help with a focus group? Probably the best way to reach out is to just reach out to IGA HQ. You can reach us at staff@igda.org or info@igda.org. Or actually, we have a contact form on our website. So if you don't want to have to remember any emails, you can just go to the Contact Us page on igda.org and we'll receive your inquiries. FragTube asked if there is a replacement for Director of Chapter and SIG Operations. So yes and no. We have retired the director of chapter and SIG operations as a title, and replaced that with the manager of global development. The reason why is because while chapter and SIG operations are extremely important, we felt that we didn't want the role to focus specifically only on chapters and special interest groups, and we wanted to ensure that the role was including development of our support for game developers in all regions, whether or not they have chapter and special interest groups, and to support them through programs outside of chapters and special interest groups as well. And so our new manager of global development is Jakin. But if you are a chapter special interest group, by all means, he's probably the person that you'll be going to for support, though all of the IGDA staff and our coordinators provide support as well. So you might get a response from me, you might get a response from Jakin, you might get a response from Natasha or Victoria or Amy, depending on what you're asking about. Wonderful. And these are really great questions. So thank you all so much. I appreciate these thoughtful and considerate questions. And, of course, yes. So FragTube also asked, is the IGA Slack that was used for chapter and headquarters communications still supported? It absolutely is. And if you are a member of a chapter or special interest group leadership team and you need access to that, by all means, send us an email and you can. However, we have seen that chapter and special interest group leaders are preferring to use the Discord. And so if you need to get leadership permission for the Discord, please just email me with your Discord ID and make sure that you're within our Discord and we can get you leadership access. That also unlocks a few channels for communication. But we use both. So on the staff side, internally we use Slack, so we're in there fairly often and we'll see any messages there. But we've found that our community, including our volunteer leadership, is preferring Discord at this time. So I would recommend looking in both places if you're trying to communicate with other chapters and special interest group leaders. If you're just looking to communicate with HQ, the Slack is absolutely fine there. And of course, if you don't want to mess around with any of those services, you can always email us. While we're waiting for any questions, board or staff members, if you have anything that you want to add to this conversation, by all means, feel free to speak up. Oh. I will have to adjust this screen. Which is not that way. Yay. All right.
Ooh. I was just going to say hello to everybody. Thank you for stopping by. I'm looking forward to connecting with you all and supporting your development so you can be an even more awesome chapter or SIG leader or member of IGDA, whatever it is, however I can support. I'm just looking forward to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jakin's a super valuable resource if you're looking to grow your communities or just get information about resources to support yourself or other developers within your area. So by all means, feel free to reach out. And I know he'll be sending out some emails to say hi as well shortly. Well, if there's no further questions, I wanted to thank you all so much for attending. Of course, the IGDA is a community-based organization. We're a membership-based organization, so having your input and insight is always super important to us. I hope you're excited about what we're working on this next year, and thank you so very much for all of your support. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful time. There's one final question about any news on the production SIG. I would have to double check on that, but my understanding is that SIG is ramping back up. So it's become active again. I would need to look into the exact state of those communications. But last I heard, it was becoming activated. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.